Today, I want to talk with you and really tackle the conundrum of how an unfaithful spouse hates to kind of give up details and have to answer questions and answer the same questions and give up more information, and the struggle that the betrayed has to try and get new information or more information or even all of the information. Roughly 6 months into Samantha and I's journey, I remember we were living in this little apartment, and Samantha walked up to me and said, "I need to talk to you later. I need to ask you some questions later, so I need you to be prepared for it," and walked away. And that might as well have been her walking up with a stick of dynamite, sticking it in my pocket, lighting the fuse, and having the fuse be long enough to just go psst until about 9 o'clock that night once the kids were in bed. I mean, it was hellacious. And that story repeats itself time and time again for many of you. For some of you, you don't get the benefit of having the spouse walk up and light a fuse and come back. Some of you deal with the moment where your spouse walks up and says, "Well, what about this and what about this and why didn't you tell me this and this and this?" And it's overwhelming. But let me frame this for you a little bit, and I want to talk to you, the unfaithful spouse, first. Here's what you have to understand. I was talking to a buddy just 2 days ago, and he said, "Oh, here we go again. She wants to ask me all these questions." And I said, "I got to tell you, she's not trying to shame you. She's trying to put the pieces together to try and heal." I said, "I think you're getting under shame. I think we've worked through all this before, and you're dealing with all this shame because you don't want to talk about it. So it's bringing up all these feelings of embarrassment, shame, self-hate, anger, resentment, condemnation, despair. All these emotions are coming up because I don't think that you're healed, and this may actually be an opportunity to help you heal while helping your spouse heal." You see, in the journey that the unfaithful spouse has, we don't like to talk about our affair, our addiction, our choices, our pain, because it makes us feel ashamed of our pain and we feel uncomfortable. So we don't want to talk about what makes us feel uncomfortable. The problem is the betrayed spouse has to talk about what has happened or they can't heal. The data is off the chart. The 40 years of research will prove that. The betrayed spouse, and this is for both of you, the betrayed spouse cannot heal very well at all without being able to talk about what has happened and process it. If they don't get a chance to process it, here's what happens. Number one, they have all this unresolved anger inside of them. Number two is the betrayed spouse has an imagination. If they don't know what happened and if they don't know what didn't happen, their imagination just runs wild. They start to put together different scenes, different things, different imaginations that happened, and so now they're not just suffering from what has happened, they're suffering from what they think happened, and they don't know the truth, and so now the pain compounds because they don't know what happened, and they don't know if they're just overreacting and imagining things, or if those things actually happen. Number three, they're somewhat paralyzed because they don't know what to forgive. They don't know what to grieve for. They don't know what to let go of. So they remain in a state of paralysis. And here's the thing. If you're an unfaithful spouse, you've basically driven your car and rammed your spouse and caused incredible damage. If you get in an accident when you're driving on the road and you bail, you don't help them heal, that's called a hit and run. And infidelity for a lot of people, not all people, but a lot of people, is a hit and run. We commit this great atrocity and then we try and run. The people that have character and integrity will decide, you know what, this sucks. I'm embarrassed. I'm humiliated. I'm so ashamed of what I've done. But I've got to be a man, I've got to be a woman, and I've got to take responsibility for this. And if I don't take responsibility for this, it's only going to get worse. I tell unfaithful spouses, if you can't talk about it, then you probably are not healed. And so That doesn't mean you need to go get healed and then you'll talk about it with your spouse, because I got a big, fresh wind of information for you here. How you're going to heal is actually by talking about it. So the necessity becomes for boundaries. If you're a betrayed spouse, let me help you, because at some level you're driving the bus here. If you're a betrayed spouse, here's what I want to really appeal to you to do. I want to tell you to not make any decisions. I want to tell you to create a safe place. Now, some of you just vomited and said, why do I, the betrayed spouse, have to create a safe place? I'm sorry, I know, but if you don't create a safe place, your unfaithful spouse is probably not going to give you the information. You're going to have to create a safe space where you say to your unfaithful, listen, I need the details, I need to ask you some questions, I won't make any decisions, I just need answers. And you, the betrayed, you have to decide not to make any decisions, because then you're saying, give me all the details, I'll process it for a week, 2 weeks, I don't know, somewhere, at least a good 4 to 6 days. I'm going to process, I'm going to get some help, and then I'll make some decisions. But I'm not going to make any decisions until I get all the information. Number 2 is betrayed spouse. When you get the details, you've got to commit to not shaming them and attacking them and berating them. I know it's incredibly hard, but that will only reinforce them not giving you information. You've also, betrayed, have to understand that they don't want to talk about what makes them feel uncomfortable and full of shame. So that doesn't mean that you have to coddle them. It just means you have to have a perspective. Now, if you're unfaithful, I'm just going to tell you, you're going to have to give them details. You're going to have to get it all out with a commitment from them to not shame you or berate you or blow your head off. But yet, if you don't get the information out, you're preventing them from healing. You're keeping them from being able to move forward. And what do we call those people in life who do hit and runs and take off? Well, they're criminals. They've broken a law. They've done some incredible damage, and they have to be sought out in court sometimes. And I've talked to people who've regretted hitting a car and taking off for decades. But I want to tell you, one of the best ways that you can help your betrayed spouse heal is by giving information, by creating a safe environment with boundaries or maybe even a third person, and getting the information out.